That Sauron lives because of you!
And you will die because of me!
The greatest doubts have finally been resolved in the Rings of Power, which revealed Sauron's identity after a whole season of heated speculation over any individual that even remotely appeared remotely nasty. According to J.R.R. Tolkien's legend, Sauron vanished for a few decades after the Valar vanquished his lord, Morgoth, at the end of the First Age. The Dark Lord disguised himself when he returned, a topic that Amazon's The Rings of Power has taken great pleasure in exploring. The Rings of Power purposefully fueled the rumor with red herrings, dead-end clues, and cunning teasers. The stranger, Halbrand, the dweller, Celebrimbor, Adar, and the nasty Dilly Brandifoot were all suspects to differing degrees. In The Rings of Power Episode 8, Sauron is shown to have been hidden in plain sight the entire time, as many had already prophesied. Like many others had anticipated, Sauron turned out to be Halbrand all along. From the outset, the alleged Southlander Galadriel encountered on the Sundering Seas was Morgoth's lost right-hand man. Naturally, the Halbrand disclosure in the Rings of Power raises a lot of concerns, some of which have solutions and others of which do not. Halbrand, played by Charlie Vickers, is unquestionably the genuine Sauron. That much is clear from the Season 1 conclusion of the Rings of Power. In J.R.R. Tolkien's Second Age, Sauron had the power to change his shape at will, and at this moment in his The Rings of Power return, dressing as a mortal man obviously served his needs. The Rings of Power will likely continue, and Sauron may now assume other identity, although during Season 1, his guise has been Halbrand. Strangely, Sauron's position, actions, and locations before meeting Galadriel at sea in Episode 2 of the Rings of Power's first season are all but ignored in the season's end. We know that Sauron started an orc research project when Morgoth lost the War of Wrath and the Moriondor thought he had killed the Dark Lord, as Adar kindly revealed back in Episode 6. Even if Adar was inevitably going to be mistaken, what occurred to Sauron between that heated exchange and Galadriel's welcome? When does the Halbrand persona become useful? Although the Rings of Power doesn't give a precise explanation, Sauron probably needed to do so once his corporeal form died in order to regain his power. He clearly hints that death was a terrible and uncomfortable experience by his fury toward Adar. At some point prior to the Rings of Power, Sauron conjured a fresh physical form. He then seized the Southland's crest from its last known king and assumed the identity Halbrand. Based on what the Dweller and her friends tell the stranger in the Rings of Power Season 1's finale, Sauron possibly spent his time away in Rhûn, a land of antagonistic men to the far east of Middle-earth. Sauron hiding in Rhûn offers a logical reason for his human-shaped disguise, and also addresses why Galadriel never found him despite many years searching far and wide. The idea broadly fits with Tolkien's mythology too, since Sauron also flees to Rhûn after losing the One Ring to Isildur during the last alliance of elves and men. The fact that Sauron seems sincere in his belief that he has transformed is perhaps the most unexpected result of Halbrand's revelation in the Rings of Power. He denounces Morgoth in his conversation with Galadriel, and declares his wish to restore Middle-earth by repairing the harm his vanquished former lord caused. While Sauron's view of fixing Middle-earth reflects the traditional fantasy villain cliché of believing that tyranny and order create peace and prosperity, it is possible that he became weary of Morgoth over those ages spent in exile. With Galadriel, Sauron is upfront about his intention to rule supremely over all species as part of his healing plan. Additionally, the fact that Sauron is carrying out his One Ring scheme shows a desire to rule Middle-earth by violence, in line with the mastery over flesh Celebrimbor proclaimed before to creating the Elven Rings. Sauron has not reformed. He hasn't turned good, had a change of heart, or seen the error of his ways. In reality, Morgoth's absence has created an opportunity for the sidekick to take center stage. Wanting to become Middle-earth's great savior is a delusional lie. To Galadriel, yes, but perhaps also to Sauron himself. Whatever deceptions come from Halbrand's lips, Sauron seeks power, control, and dominion in Amazon's The Rings of Power. The Dweller, Nomad, and Ascetic immediately presume his genuine Maiar powers haven't entirely returned since they're still under the notion that their mystery stranger is Sauron in the Rings of Power Season 1 finale. Does that rule still apply to Halbrand even if they're talking about the whole incorrect person? In the Rings of Power Episode 8, the answer is not made explicit, but if Sauron is not yet fully formed, he is undoubtedly well on his way. The blade assault from Galadriel is successfully rebuffed, and Sauron uses magic to transform the elf into a mental illusion. Halbrand's influence very immediately on Celebrimbor, who is hardly a fool, demonstrates that Sauron has plenty of mana in the Rings of Power. Nevertheless, the villain's reliance upon manipulating others might indicate he isn't yet at the peak strength enjoyed before Morgoth's First Age downfall. After losing the War of Wrath and suffering Adar's betrayal, Sauron seems to have been slowly regaining strength over a period of centuries. The Rings of Power finds him able to shape-shift, fight battles, and cast spells again. But Sauron's true ceiling probably goes higher still. In the Rings of Power, the elves are perish. They must either depart Middle-earth or take Mithril to rekindle the light of Valinor that is fading inside them. The artist once known as Halbrand emerges as a surprising hero at the worst hour for the elves. He suggests to Celebrimbor that they create 1 or 2 items that will help to save the entire species, while also instructing Celebrimbor to employ Mithril as an alloy. Halbrand pushes Celebrimbor to research ways to turn the priceless Mithril of the dwarves into an alloy metal, and comes up with the concept of utilizing rings as containers rather than a crown. Is Halbrand assisting the elves out of genuine goodwill, or in exchange for treating his fictitious injury? Zero chance. While the elves might look upon Halbrand as a savior now, his true intentions are revealed in The Lord of the Rings. By inspiring Celebrimbor to craft the elves' 3 Rings of Power, Sauron sets into motion a chain of events that ultimately allows him to dominate Middle-earth. Sauron's dark influence upon a region is inspired directly by the works of Tolkien, as the literary villain was also responsible for giving Celebrimbor the means to craft power beyond the elves' science. His eventual goal, of course, was corrupting those who possessed the 19 Rings of Power using his own secret ruling ring. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to comment, subscribe, and give us a like.